Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Life Matters TV. I'm Tommy Stoffel, and today David and I, my co-host, are going to talk about how not to take things personally. First of all, David made an observation that it looks like I'm in prison today. And in fact, I'm just wearing a shirt that looks like a prison shirt, and I happen to be sitting in the lobby of a hotel. I'm on a business trip this week and in a business center in an Omni Hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I do have some other folks in the room here with me, and hopefully we won't disturb them too much. And David, why don't you talk a little bit about what we're going to dive into today?
Well, thank you, Tommy. And yeah, I was. It does look a little bit like a prison, and maybe that's just me. That's about me. That's me making an observation that may have absolutely nothing to do with you. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, is how we sometimes take things personally when we really ought not to be doing that. And it's easy to do that. I don't know about you, but I find that sometimes when people say certain things to me, I notice that I have a reaction, and I want to get even with them, or some other thing is going on. And basically, I've essentially just swallowed their poison pill. That poison is flowing through me, and now I want to get that venom out of me, and so I try and turn it right back at them. And I suspect that a lot of our viewers have a similar kind of experience, and maybe you have too. What do you think?
Yeah, at least maybe once or twice in every week of my life up to a point. But yeah, it happens, right? And so today, let's dig down into what that is and kind of the root causes of it, because that's a lot of what we do here on Life Matters TV, is we get down to the root cause, kind of bring it out into the surface and talk about it, and that helps relieve and get you out of prison sometimes, a little bit of a jailbreak. So so the person, this was a question that came to us right during our free-for-all request, and I don't have the question in front of me, but it went something to the effect of that. In the 4 agreements by Miguel Ruiz, the second agreement is don't take things personally. And the person asked pretty funnily, well, how the heck do you do that? Give us a clue. So how do we not do that? And what I do these days is when I try to figure out what's going on inside of myself, first of all, I have to do that. Like, what is this? What is this? Do not taking things personally. What happens? And feel this for yourself. What happens? And I'm going to kind of guide us along a little bit to start this off. But I said it. What do we feel? We feel something, right? So just to kind of break this down to basics, David, I'm going to get to it's an emotional thing. And whose emotion is it? It's my emotion. So first off, do I have control over the situation? All right? Am I taking things personally? Let's talk about who's taking that and where it's hitting me, and I'm pointing the fingers right here. So that's the first step, right? Get where I'm going here. It's what is this thing? You started saying, yeah, we feel like we want to fire back at people, and that's what our knee-jerk reaction is to do. But really, we need to look at, again, like we always do in Life Matters, what's going on inside of here, right?
Right. And I think that while it's happening, while the reaction is going on inside me, I may not have the total awareness, the total ability to actually focus on what's going on. It may take me a moment or two to realize, oh, wow, I'm taking this personally. This is not even about me. This is about the other person, because it was just his words or her words, and something going on for him or her, and now I'm making it about me.
Yeah.
It may be true that this person said something to me like, man, are you ever stupid? Something like that. But whatever that person said, no matter how hurtful it might seem on the outside, really was still about that person. It really had nothing to do with me in the first place. And yet, here I am having this emotional reaction that you were just talking about. And so the question is, what is my emotional reaction? What is going on inside me? What can I do about it now that I'm aware that I'm having this emotional reaction?
Right, and we can look at this from the big, okay, I take things personally. We can start there, but as you start to work this and listen to what we're going to talk about today, you'll start picking up, like what you said, David. You'll start picking up. Can you turn that volume down a little bit? I don't know, I'm getting feedback on my side, but
okay.
as long as you can still hear me, yeah, it's better. And so what's going on in here? And we talk about it like we get our buttons pushed, right? So think of it, feel that, how that feels. We get our buttons pushed. We've got like kind of pulled into something, like somebody pulls us into their drama. Triggers, right? We have these triggers going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get to a place where you're going to, like you said, you're going to start picking up on that. You may not have that awareness firsthand, but we're going to get to a place where you're like, ooh, ow, that one hurt. And it gives you that pause to start figuring out how you're going to respond instead of reacting, instead of getting pulled into the game.
Right, and you know, as you were saying that, one of the things that Ruiz says in his book, it's kind of like, okay, I'm walking down the street and some guy I don't even know walks up to me and says, "You're a jerk." And so as I look at this, I'm thinking, how does he know that about me? How could he possibly know that I'm a jerk? And or maybe I have a different one. Maybe everybody thinks I'm a jerk. You know, so I kind of expand it out and make it even more about myself. And then what I've really done in that moment is I've accepted someone else's word as truth for me. And the moment I do that, I basically just poisoned myself. And in poisoning myself, now I have to do the work that's necessary to clear that poison out of my system, but I got to do it in a way that doesn't return the poison to somebody else. That's the key.
Yeah, that's a great distinction, and that's what maybe sometimes I use the word reacting. Is that knee jerk, like firing back and sending the poison back, or shooting the arrow back at somebody else, or responding. And that responding is maybe not firing back, maybe not shooting the arrow back, maybe not throwing back the poison. And there's consciousness in there, and there's space in there, and there's a little bit of a break or a breather or a split second where you pause before you fire back. So there's two aspects of this, and I think the taking poison and giving poison is a great metaphor, analogy for it. Or I like to talk about shooting arrows. You know, if somebody shoots an arrow at me, and am I going to be hurt by that arrow? One is the first question. Second one, am I going to take that arrow out and am I going to fire it back and try to hurt them? Mm-hmm. So it's this two-way thing. So let's...
Or turn it into a rose, as you said one time.
Right. Yeah. Someday. Yeah, we'll get there too. Right. Of being able to hand somebody back something that that heals a situation or makes it better and doesn't put fuel on the fire, doesn't add gasoline to the fire.
Yeah. Well, I think that there was somebody famously said many years ago, "What you think about me is none of my business," or "Your opinion of me is none of my business." I'm paraphrasing here. And it really is true, and I think that's what the meat of Don't Take It Personally is all about. Remember that what somebody else says or does or thinks is all about them. It really has nothing to do with me, no matter what they say or how they try to direct it at me. And so it's really a choice that I'm making in the moment to accept it as something about me, or just simply to hear it as, oh, this person has an opinion. So my first choice could be, in whether I say this out loud or say it quietly to myself, I could just say, that's a real interesting perspective, and just leave it at that. Mm-hmm. And then so I'm giving my ego mind a chance to simply observe it rather than to react to it.
Yeah, again, the observing gives you that space, and gives you that chance to put some thought and some wisdom behind what comes out next, and maybe it's nothing. Right. You know, we'll talk a little bit later about a practice and an exercise of how to kind of disengage some of this button pushing that goes on in our lives. And some of it is you start by practicing, and you start by practicing by imagining a relationship that you have, and maybe you can imagine the next time that person walks up and you know they're going to push your button, you have already pre-thought how you're going to respond. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what you're saying there, kind of choosing a response instead of that fire back, you know, no thought allowed knee-jerk reaction. Because those knee-jerk reactions we know lead to, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. And it leads to regret, leads to bad decisions, leads to maybe escalating fights and silly stuff like that.
Right. Well, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about part of my response is finding a way of sharing what my truth is in an impeccable way. So in a sense, I'm engaging the first agreement in the way that I respond to people. If I am throwing poison back at them, then I'm essentially not being impeccable with my word, and I am giving up my own power, and I'm making it now about this whole situation rather than simply being who I am, speaking my truth, taking responsibility, and engaging the person from a place of love rather than from a place of fear and anger and whatever else might be going on for me.
Yeah, you hit it on the nose there, and one of the words that I heard in there among what you just said was giving away my power.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if we look at what we're talking about here, taking things personally, we're giving away our power. We're letting somebody pull us into their drama. We're letting some situation drag us out of our presence and our power, and making us act some way or behave some way or do something that really isn't in alignment with our being impeccable or being true to ourselves. And so I'm going to take that word power for a minute, because we talk about it, but the power is it's energy. It's actually energy, and it's all our emotions are energy. Anger is a very heavy, red, fiery energy. Love is a very peaceful, giving, caring energy. Even peace, even the energy of peace, has a lot of power to it. So all these emotions that we have and that run inside us and that we act out or behave out or do things with are forms of energy.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually a really good point that you're making. And I know that when I have energy running amok in my body, my body just wants to react. It wants to move. It wants to get that energy out. It doesn't like having that energy trapped inside. And so part of the objective here is to let the energy move out, but without giving it more power than it deserves. And part of the way that I can give it more power than it deserves is by allowing words to come out that are intended to hurt somebody. That doesn't serve anybody. If I can just let that energy flow through me and flow out of me without reacting in any way, then I essentially am allowing it to flow through a channel of love. And I'm transforming it from the negative, if you like, however we choose to describe it, to something that's either neutral or even positive. And I think that's an important piece for us to do. But I have to say this: when the energy is there, I can't just ignore it. I can't just stuff it. I have to allow it to flow. Otherwise, it can do me damage.
Did you say do me damage? Do you damage?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think we could spend a whole nother show talking about energy and energy games and emotional energy inside ourselves. But it's important for this talk because that's what's happening, right? We're triggering an energetic reaction. We're triggering an emotional reaction. Somebody's pushing our button or yanking or pulling our chain or all these terms we use. And what we're trying to do is figure out how to not get pulled into that drama, how not to get pulled into that drama in a negative way, right? How not to fight fire with fire. If you fight fire with fire, you're still in the fire. And so like I said, pouring gasoline on a flame, and that's what we want to. It hurts ourselves, like you said. It hurts me. So if somebody pushes my button, and inside I turn that energy into more negative energy. Call it what it is. There's positive energy, there's negative energy, and I just said there's neutral. If it's negative energy, then we're just hurting ourselves.
Right.
And probably hurting that relationship, and creating, and we're throwing out negative energy into the world, which doesn't do much good for anybody. So where to go with this? Why do we do this in the first place? Why do we take things personally?
Well, I think we do this because we make ourselves more important than we really are. We have this sense of we have learned from a very young age that we have to please our mommy and our daddy. We have to do what they say to do. if mom or dad says something about us like, oh, you're lazy or you're fat or you're whatever, we tend to take it as truth because we see those people as our gods. And God, of course, is omnipotent and all-powerful and all-knowing, and so we take it as truth. And then when they say something about us as we grow older, that habit has been so ingrained in us that we're not even aware we're doing it, but we're making ourselves more important in the moment than we really are. That's how I see it, anyway.
So is there a way to catch yourself and to put that sense of importance in check? Is there a way you do that to say, you know what? Maybe they're right, but what? Maybe, you know, how do we, again, we're talking about somebody pushing our button, and maybe it's, you know, it's wrapped around needing other people's approval.
Mm-hmm.
And we think ourselves are important. So do you have any sense of, like, what do? You don't, I know you have ways of doing this, that you don't take things personally as you used to, because I know that about you.
Yeah.
So what have you done to kind of to say, you know what, I'm not that important? Is that what you say? Like, you know, I'm not that important. I don't know if that's what people can come to yet.
I think that for me personally, it has been a journey. Okay, it's not something that I just simply learned overnight and just suddenly turned off a switch and stopped taking things personally. It was a progressive thing. And the big part of that was, you know, doing my own work, healing my own inner wounds, so that when somebody did say something that happened to touch one of my wounds, it wouldn't have quite as strong an impact. And furthermore, as I was doing that, I was able to recognize that my reaction was all about me. Whatever it was they said or did was all about them. So I've been able to separate those two, and I've been able to notice, oh, damn, I'm having a reaction again. It's time for me just to breathe, be present, let the energy flow, and try to be in a place of love for this person, even if that means walking away. So for me, it's just a question of consciousness and awareness more than anything else. And I think it's the consciousness and the awareness that makes it possible to avoid the knee-jerk reaction in the first place.
Exactly right, and beautifully stated. Right, yeah, that awareness and that consciousness gives you that space, that little bit of a split-second break between firing back or not.
Yep.
So yeah, that's real important, and hopefully, you know, through what we're talking through in other classes and stuff like that, we're creating that space and that awareness, and people are creating it for themselves. So the other thing I think about when I think about my taking things personally, you know, one is, yeah, that I'm caught in myself, I'm stuck in myself, I'm caught in my self-importance. The other thing that comes back to what you said earlier of, you know, pleasing mommy and daddy, and not to keep going back to mommy and daddy, but what we're doing is going back in history and time, looking for a root cause, looking for, that's what you're doing when you go through that process, is where did this start? Where did I get this habit from? Where did I get this propensity to take things personally and make somebody else maybe be able to feel crappy? And it is kind of that, right? It's with who's ever bringing us up in the early days. We get approved of and we get disapproved of. You know, oh, you're potty training and you hit the toilet, good boy. Or you did it in your diaper again. Oh, you know, kind of get better at that. And it starts at a very early age.
Yeah.
And it goes through school. You know, you get approvals, you get A's, or you get F's, you get all this stuff. And we can't fix that whole system, but what we can do is look at where it came from and decide as an adult to unhook those hooks that are there, untie those bonds that are there that make us act today like as we don't want to act anymore.
Yep.
So I want to talk about some things, and you know, we walk around today and we're so caught up in having an approval rating, right? Like, oh, everybody likes me, I have lots of friends, I'm very popular, how many likes you have on Facebook, how many, you know, and all this stuff that we do, that society does around us to make us stay addicted to other people's approval.
Yeah.
And as I was thinking of this, I thought some of the coolest people I know, whether they're fictional characters like a James Bond or real people like a Dalai Lama, do you ever see them giving a shit about what other people think of them?
That's true. That's a really good point. I wanted to just address something that you said. First, I liked your image of the little boy going through potty training and the approval process that happens there. This happens to every single one of us. I don't know of anybody who hasn't gone through that particular experience in their lives. And of course, by the time we're 5 or 6, we've completely forgotten about it. That event happened, it's all over, and yet the process of being trained to go to the toilet in the right way and to satisfy somebody else's expectation is ingrained now in our cells. And so unhooking it, as you said, is not a trivial thing to do. It has gone into our unconscious. We've forgotten about it. So the thing is, we have to revisit this stuff. We have to look at those old events in our lives and remember, oh, now I see where that came from. And now I can forgive myself for maybe not being perfect at potty training instantly the moment that I started doing it. You know?
Right, yeah.
So I think that's a critical piece, and I just wanted to bring that back up.
Yeah, and thanks. And that actually takes us back to show number 15 when Chris was on and talked about finding those things, right? Those truths or those things that we believed were true about ourselves and revisiting them. So that's a big part of this practice of everything we talk about show after show is being able to kind of go back and maybe find a root cause and then releasing it. Go with this process of forgiving the situation that happened at the time, the people that were involved in it, ourselves, and unhooking it. What we're doing is we're unhooking memories, thoughts from emotions.
Right.
And there's a lot of power in doing that. And we'll still have the thought, we'll still have the memory, but it won't be tied to this negative emotion or this bad feeling. Yeah. And that's where our buttons come from. Think of yourself as having buttons and people are pushing your buttons. Some of us have thousands of buttons. Well, that's what those buttons are. They're kind of emotional memories that are in there, and in the energy games we play with each other, people know how to push them.
That's right. So there's a couple of comments here. One I just wanted to mention Sarah here. She said, for children, everything is black and white, and pretty much everyone tells the truth. And so that's part of the reason that they take things and treat things, and that's why it's so hard for us to change as well. So we take as gospel what others say about us, and that's part of the reason. I think that's a very, very powerful awareness that Sarah has shared with us, and something that we just kind of have to bear in mind. And so I think what it merits forgiveness and an understanding of each other, and to say, okay, I'm taking it personally because of X that probably happened way back when I was a kid. And I think it's a really good way of honoring and forgiving ourselves at the same time.
I think so too. Thanks, Sarah. Yep.
And another comment here came from Maria. She was asking, so if it's not possible, if you're not in a place of being able to forgive another person, to have love in your heart so that you can forgive another person, at least you can have love in your heart for yourself so that you can forgive yourself and perhaps not take things personally so much going forward. I think that's a powerful piece too, so thank you, Maria, for that.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. And again, if we kind of think about this button situation, right? What you're doing there is you're starting to dismantle the buttons. These buttons are wired, and they're not in our cellular level, but they're in our consciousness and in our subconsciousness. And scientifically, they've shown that we can rewire our minds. There's plasticity of something or other, and we can relearn things. So even though we have something that was implanted in us a long time ago, and was reinforced and reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. Through this process that we're talking about, and through coming here and listening to these calls, and through reading books and listening to other teachers, we can rewire our minds and our whole inner workings, emotionally and mentally. And I know it works because I've done it for myself. So
yeah,
so
I agree with
that.
David.
What else can we do to dig into taking things personally? What other ideas?
Well, I wanted to just kind of paraphrase how I understand what you just said. I think as people pay attention to what we're saying and they join us on our calls and they offer us their perspectives through their questions and so forth, what we're doing is we're helping people in general to wake up. And I think that's the key. Yes, things are going to happen. People are going to say things or do things, and they seem to be directed at us. And yes, we may have a reaction, but we have a choice. We have a choice in the moment, and that choice is I can react, or I can just let the energy flow through me, and then, to use your metaphor, I can take that arrow and turn it into a rose and hand it back. I have that power. I don't have to give up my power by allowing myself to cave into the whole reaction thing and start feeding out poison, and maybe not even to the person who directed at me, but to someone else down the chain who ends up getting it because I didn't do my own personal work. So I think it's really important that we begin to recognize our sensitivity to the way people talk to us, and then do our own work about it. Go down and understand where that belief system came from, where that behavior pattern came from, bring some loving, healing energy to it, and dismantle the button as you describe it. That's what we have to do, and it's a process.
It is a process. It is a process. But then the alternative is to keep getting our feelings hurt, or if anybody has the ability to change your mood in your life, then you've got buttons with that person. And one thing I tell my students is you don't go for the big relationships first. You don't try to unhook the mom or the dad or the spouse or the kid. But we're going to teach you a little bit of an exercise here to practice on what we call the third tier. You start with some distant relationships, and you actually start thinking about this. The next time they walk up to you, and you kind of know the dynamic that they play, you kind of know how you feel after you meet with somebody, you're going to, in your mind, say, you know what, I'm not going to react the way I usually react. Consciously, I'm thinking this through in advance, and the next time they pull their shit or push their button or try to yank my chain, maybe I won't say anything. But I'm not going to react the way I usually react. And that's step one. And like you said, it's a process, David, but this is a process that works, and you have to do this. You have to do this for your own energetic well-being, for your own peace of mind, for your own personal power. This is something we all need to do and all need to work on, which is why it came up as a question, and it's something that we are spending a whole episode on, because it's a deep one, right? It goes back to our roots.
Yeah.
Very first approvals.
Well, that's a very important point, and something, you just triggered another thought. I mean, this is what I love about these conversations, is that one thing leads to another. But I have the belief now that I don't have the power to make someone else happy or sad or anything else. I simply have the power to do whatever it is I do, and you have the power to react in the way that you choose. So I am not responsible for what you feel, no matter whether you want me to feel that responsibility or not. It's not my responsibility. What you feel is your responsibility, and it's your job to do whatever it is you need to do to process those feelings and to deal with them. And if part of your reaction is to get angry with me because of something I've done, well, now I have an opportunity to deal with your stuff a little bit and make that not about me. It's very, very important, and I think that we have to keep that awareness. I don't have the power to make anybody else feel any particular way. And so if I believe that someone else has that power on me, essentially I'm giving my power away again.
I'm going to sit in a moment of silence, because that was very well said, and that ran deep, man. That runs deep, what you said right there.
Yeah.
Miguel Ruiz says it in a way. He says you're only responsible for 50% of a relationship.
Yeah.
But you said it. I feel that came out much stronger in what you said. So we've got just a few minutes left, and a couple things I want to just bring up quickly, and maybe we'll have to spend some more time on this in the future. Some people think that if you don't take things personally, that maybe you're not doing your job, or you're somehow you're letting things go, or you're just rolling over and being soft and letting people step on you. And I'll tell you the truth, it's the opposite of that. When you can stop the bullet from coming, and it doesn't hurt you, and it doesn't take you down, doesn't make you cry or whimper or whine or feel drained, then you're powerful. There's no weakness in that whatsoever. You are strong, you're clear-headed, you're in the moment, you're focused on what's going on, and there's a lot of power in that presence. So some people's
Beautiful.
minds might be going, oh, if I don't take things personally, then I'm not being forceful enough, and
Yeah.
it's wrong logic.
Right. That's a good point. Thank you. Was there another point you wanted to make?
No, except to think about the coolest people you know, like, and they don't give a rat's ass what other people think of them. And
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
that's an advanced teaching, but that's where you want to get to at some point.
You know,
So
frankly, I don't think I've ever seen a rat's ass, but no one's ever given me one.
And hopefully we don't get a lot of them in the mail. No
That's
fan
right.
mail. No rat's asses, please.
Oh my God! I hope I haven't set us up for something like that. Hey, here's a rat's ass.
So we did the practice of what you need to do, and think about that. Pick a third tier relationship. You know who those are. It's not your close tight ones. It's not your kind of family and friends, but it's somebody maybe at work or somebody that knows how to bug you or push your buttons or make you feel less good than you feel on a regular basis. And imagine how replay that situation and kind of see them come in slow motion. You know, say, yeah, you know what? I know what it looks like. I know what it sounds like. I know what they're going to say. And this time, I'm not going to react the way I usually react. And try that. And your response is going to be different. I can't tell you how to respond, and maybe it's at first to do nothing. Maybe
Yeah, doing nothing could be powerful, but I would also like to suggest that as I imagine this happening in my mind, rather than saying I'm not going to react the way I usually do, I'd rather have a strategy. Say, this is how I intend to react. I intend to be a wall of love for this person, and that may mean being totally silent.
Nice. Brilliant. Yeah. So we encourage everyone to kind of play with that one for yourself and practice on your third tiers. And David, are we? You got something you're reading there?
Yes, I just noticed Sarah Jane asked another great question here, and it's a good lesson I'd like to just share with everybody. One of the things that we sometimes do, and this is actually kind of trickling into Ruiz's third agreement, which is don't make assumptions. When you hear something from someone, one thing that you can do to help yourself dismantle the reaction that you might be having is to get clarifying information from them and say, did I just hear you say X? Did I understand you correctly? Make sure that you really heard what they said and not what you thought they said.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks again, Sarah Jane.
So,
all right, David.
Yeah, I think we're done there, Tommy. Anything you want to say to close out before I take it away?
No, you know, we could spend another hour or a couple days on this one, and maybe again we'll revisit it periodically. But I think it's time to announce next week's Life Matters TV adventure.
Alrighty then. Yeah, and I'm really excited because next week we are inviting another guest onto our show, a man who is a very funny man, and I love comedians because they are great observers of the world. They see things in a way that most people don't really notice, and this is why we end up laughing, because they see things in such an amazing way. So we've invited our special guest, our friend, our mutual friend, Dickie Bill Wagner, who's going to be joining us from Colorado next week, and he's going to talk about his view on life, and he's going to help us to lighten up. So I'll see you guys all next week.
Tommy signing off from prison. Bye, everybody.
Bye.